Miller got to be part of the Inside the League. They hosted an event this past week with Senior Vice President of Player Personnel Doug Whaley and Senior Director of Player Administration and Officiating Operations Russ Giglio last Thursday night, discussing multiple topics. Most of the topics that were discussed around the XFL draft scheduled to occur between the 15th and 17th. Other questions that were addressed, including player contracts, players after the draft and training camp. He's got a whole breakdown. So, of course, the XFL draft will occur in Las Vegas at the USFC. It all begins on Tuesday with the quarterback selection show, where the coaches will make the announcements. On the 16th, the draft days will begin with offensive skilled players, defensive backs, defensive front seven, offensive linemen being picked. There will be 11 picks per grouping and about 60 players selected. So keep that in mind. The first round will be 5 minutes, and each round afterward decreases the time teams have to select their player of choice. ESPN, of course, will have cut-ins throughout the day where draft picks will be announced by owners Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Danny Garcia. Day 2 of the draft will have the specialists and open rounds for the draft. No trades will be allowed in the draft, something that to keep in mind. Each player will receive a call or some notification from the Director of Player Personnel and head coach once they are selected. Roughly 450 players will be drafted in total, with about 1,700 players' names in the draft pool. I got all these people always asking me, oh, interview me. I'm like, just because you're in the player pool, there's tons of names in the player pool. Doesn't mean you're going to get drafted. We will have to wait and see on that. So according to Giglio, an estimated 725 players are in the pool from the 2022 NFL draft class. 115 players are from the 2021 NFL draft class, and 275 players from the 2020 NFL draft class. Players will have until December 26th to commit to the XFL after being drafted by the league. Remember, when the XFL had its draft, some of the players, and we actually interviewed one of the agents, they didn't want to play for the XFL, didn't even realize their name was part of the player pool. Their agent put them in. They said, no thanks. So that can happen as well. But then we have the supplemental draft will definitely fill in the blanks for that. Those who the XFL doesn't draft will be eligible for the supplemental draft that will take place in early January. That supplemental draft will include those who weren't drafted, NFL players who were just cut, and other players who are added to the draft pool, say from the USFL. Even if players aren't drafted, they could still be signed as injury replacements on rosters. The league plans on having in-season workouts with players, with Whaley tentatively planning on those occurring in Arlington, Texas, once every 2 weeks. And remember, the NFL Alumni Academy, those players will be part of the draft and on training camp teams. Training camp latest. So one comment that was made with regarding mini camps, as it was originally planned to happen in late December. Now it appears, according to Whaley, that the league might be moving away from having a mini camp. So there was talk of having some kind of mini camps in December. They might just try to wait and just till January. We'll have to see what that is. They will instead focus on the NFL Alumni Academy and those workouts for players. Any player participating in the sessions 3 and 4 of the NFL Alumni Academy will be available for the supplemental draft in January. So that's what's going on with there. Preseason is planned to begin in early January, with players arriving on January 8th. During the first week, players will be focused on getting set up, signing all necessary documents to prepare them for training camp and the season. Preseason will essentially be a jamboree event that is tentatively planned for the last week of January. During this time, teams will potentially have just one half of football to get back into the flow of a football game. Ask how the USFL and their preseason went. It took a while for those teams to get acclimated. So we'll see if the XFL has learned from the USFL or things in their past. We'll see how this works out. This time will also be used for the ESPN to practice their broadcast to prepare when games start in February. During training camps, team will also be able to start making trades. Giglio mentioned that a trade deadline will be implemented, but no word on when the deadline will be. Final rosters will be 50 players, with 45 will be active for games and 5 will be inactive for games. Teams will have the ability to sign players throughout the in-season workouts and throughout the league's partnership with Indoor Football League. Remember that. We've talked to people from the Indoor Football League. More announcements and news are expected to be released as we build up towards the XFL draft. So some more details on how the inner workings will be for the XFL draft. Anthony Miller is all part of that. We got you covered here on XFL News Hub as always. All right, we'll take a commercial break. And be right back with our interview, our roundtable with Brandon Anderson and XFL insider Mike Mitchell. Stay tuned.